Welcome to the section on typography. Now, typography is the most critical part of interface design, and that's where we're gonna dedicate an entire module to this topic. And I don't wanna give you a bunch of typography theory here. I wanna cover real world examples and incredibly practical tips that you can implement immediately. So first of all, we're gonna start with font size. Sloppy and inconsistent usage of font sizes and weights and colors is really a telltale sign that the designer doesn't exactly know what they are doing when it comes to design. And I'm not talking about old vintage signs that has 8 different type sizes and different typefaces and they look amazing. I'm talking about interface design where there needs to be a reliable and a consistent system for a user to learn and understand. So for font size, I use what I call my rule of 4 as it relates to typography, and it's definitely a rule and not a commandment. Like all rules, it's made to be broken as long as you are aware of its boundaries and why those boundaries exist. So this rule will help you remember some basic ingredients for typography as it relates to interface design. And again, it's not exhaustive. It's just a good rule of thumb to start with. So the rule is this: limit yourself to a maximum of 4 type sizes or less. Can you break this rule? Yes. Can you use less than 4 type sizes? Yes. In fact, it's encouraged. Starting out with any design can be difficult, so use this rule as a launch pad. Let's take a look at the Instagram app, for example. On the home screen here, every single title here, the title, this liked by, the description, all of this is 1 type size. And if you scroll through, everything is that 1 type size, a 15-point copy. And the only thing that's different here besides the logo is gonna be this tiny text here that's set in 12-point font underneath all of the stories. So let's take a look at some other examples I've got in this document as well. All right, so first of all, let's check out the iOS settings app here. I've just got some screenshots placed in here, and everywhere I've got a number that references a type size. So on this first screen, number 1 is this settings title. Number 2 refers to this search copy. And you can tell here, number 2 is also on these big line items. So the search copy and the line items and the label definition value are all the same exact type size. Now my name here is slightly larger and this metadata under here is slightly smaller. So we've got, looking at this first screen, we have 4 different type sizes. Now there is a little difference in the color, and that is a way that you can distinguish between, different pieces of text, but it's the same size. It's staying a little bit more consistent. If you look over here at the Bluetooth screen, you can see that on this internal page, you only have 2 type sizes. You've got the settings and the title here. The settings action link to go back and the title, they're both set in 17-point font. And that's the same size as these list items and their definition value. So the only secondary font we have is this metadata that it's kind of like helper text that describes the Bluetooth line item. And then we've got the exact same type size set in all caps as a very minimal secondary title for this section. And again, we've got the same title down here. So if we remove all of that and kind of zoom into the screen, it just looks like a nice and clean, organized screen. And there are a number of factors that contribute to that, but one of the biggest factors is they're only using 2 type sizes. So if we look at Twitter, for example, it's another great example of restrained type sizes. So you've got your type size up here that is set in a slightly larger font and slightly bolder, but actually all of this, the username, the actual name, and the time, the kind of timestamp on the tweet and the tweet itself, it's all set in the exact same size. So the name has a bold weight and a darker color, whereas the username and the timestamp has just a regular weight with a gray text. And then in the body, it's set in a regular weight with a dark text. So we've got 3 different styles of text here, but it's all 1 size. And the only other size difference are this little metadata that refers to the comments, the retweets, and the likes. And also you get that same size here on the person who retweeted it. But there's really only 3 different type sizes on this entire page. And if we hide it and kind of zoom in, it just kind of has a nice and clean look for all these different components that they're putting into this page. And again, if you drill down, you've got your title, the same exact size for the name and the username. And actually all of this right in here, all of this is the same size, the secondary size, and then you've got a slightly larger body copy for the detail of that tweet. And just to show what I'm talking about, I recreated this in Figma, and you can see this is 17 heavy, this is 16 bold, and 16 medium. And then we've got 16 regular just set in gray and blue text. And then we've got 16 bold and regular for the likes and the retweets. So 17, 16, and this actual body copy is going to be 22 points. It's only 3 point sizes for that entire screen. And I've already shown the Instagram example. And so you can see all of these are 15. And then right over here, you have a slightly larger type size for this navigation. But again, it's only 3 different sizes basically in this entire app. And if I scroll down to Facebook Messenger, I actually quite like the Messenger design. And you can see on this first page, there are only 3 type sizes on this entire page. So we've got number 1, a really big title. We've got number 2 for the search and the line item here. And then we've got a slightly smaller typeface for these little stories and this little metadata down here. But that's pretty much it. There's only 3 type sizes, and it's very subtle, a very subtle change. And it looks good. It looks like a nice organized hierarchy of text. However, if you look at the Discover tab, you can see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different typefaces. So if I hide that and we just kind of zoom in on this particular screen, I don't know if you can tell or not, but this screen it looks a little bit all over the place. You've got these big all caps tabs, recent, Messenger, even the Messenger. Technically, I don't think that this should be extended past the margin here. We have margin across right in here, and the Messenger, the fact that it's breaking that margin is a little bit odd to me. The For You and the Business, this is really similar color. So I don't know, there's a few things going on here. And I think that this particular screen has a number of issues, but one of the biggest issues is the sheer number of type sizes. So we've got the big title, we've got the carried over line item, and then we have this slightly smaller than this size, but set in all caps for the tabs. We've got the small little messenger. We've got a secondary title. And then for the see more, it's not set in either one of these sizes. It's a brand new size. And I don't know if this is this looks like it could be slightly larger than that metadata size. But all in all, you can kind of tell that this page just in general doesn't quite have a very nice cohesive feel. And type size is going to be one of the biggest culprits for this particular screen. So for the last example, I want to look at this iOS mail app. Again, we have 4 type sizes on this main screen right here. So if I hide everything, we've got 17 point up here in the top. We've got, actually this is probably only 3. I think that Inbox and Makers are probably the same 17 point size. And a way you can tell is just type it in on top of make sure your screen is set to a 1x kind of 375 width if you're taking iOS screenshots. So Inbox set at 17 should match up pretty closely. So you can see that matches up. If I make a copy of that and type in Makers, you can see that that's pretty much the same size. So I can actually just call this the same size as that. So we can see actually we only have 3 type sizes on this page. We have title, for the page, title for the email, and then a slightly smaller body copy size for the actual kind of preview. And then we have our tiny metadata down here that says when the app was just updated. Again, this rule is by no means exhaustive. It is just a very good starting point. And if you look at nearly every single interface that you believe to be well designed, it's really likely that you will be able to find some kind of combination of a consistent title, subtitle, action items, and metadata or body copy. Those are the main kind of common occurrences. And if you can kind of really lock in, like I said, 3 to 4 of those sizes, you'll have a much cleaner, more well-balanced interface. If you find yourself having a hard time making things work with your design and you're using more than 4 typefaces, you may want to reconsider your choices and kind of scale back to bring it into a much more of a simple system of typographic usage. And it's important to note that this rule of 4 can easily be extended by changing other aspects of the type. And each of these changes can effectively change the meaning of that particular piece of interface. For example, you saw on the iOS example, the title and the action item are the exact same size, but one is bold and dark, kind of a dark black, and the other one is blue. And the meaning of those two are completely different, mostly because of the color change, but the font size is exactly the same. So color is one way to distinguish a title from an action item or a subtitle. So you can make it completely black, whereas the subtitle could be the same size. Maybe it's just like a medium gray. Or with the navigation item, maybe the navigation is blue and the other thing is black, but it's still the same size and has a nice balance to it. Similar to color, changing the weight can give different interactive definitions to the text used in the design. So in Instagram's example, they're using an incredibly subtle font weight change to indicate actionable profile names, whereas the @mentions along with the hashtags are treated with color instead of weight. And one of the reasons might be because they're created by user input as opposed to the Instagram design system. So changing the weight and changing the color are very subtle ways that you can change the meaning of interactivity when you keep the font size, the actual same size. Also, simply changing the position of a text along with the color or the weight can have a big impact on the design. So if you look back at the iOS settings example, you can see the right aligned text as the value of the larger line item. So it's set off to the right. You've got your bigger title on the left with your same size definition value on the right. It's just a slightly lighter color, but it has a completely different meaning because of the position. You can also add decoration to any number of your 4 type sizes by adding an underline or a background color. And it's an easy way to stay in the kind of rule of 4 ballpark, but giving your action items just a slightly different treatment. And if that doesn't quite cut it for you, then maybe you do need to go a different size for some of your action items. It's just kind of a rule of thumb. Okay, for homework, I'm going to have you design a coffee cup iOS app. So you've connected your iOS app to an electronic coffee cup that monitors the temperature of your coffee or your tea or any other beverage of choice that you want to keep warm. So we're going to be focused mostly on the rule of 4 here, and we're going to be focused mostly on type size and less about different UI like borders and colors and things like that. We want to focus mostly on the typography. So the parameters for this design, I want you to use the San Francisco Pro font or some other standard like Roboto or any other font that's kind of a standard font just to kind of make things easier. And assume that this coffee cup has already been connected. We don't have to go through the user experience flows of connecting the coffee cup. We're just designing a really nice interface for the settings kind of control panel. So we're going to use no more than 4 type sizes. You might pick 24, 17, 15, and 13 to kind of stay in the iOS realm, or you might pick something a little bit different, but I would encourage you not to go too much smaller than that, because it's just a kind of a standard mobile screen size to go with. So I want you to design either an iPhone 10 size artboard, or if you have a different size phone in your pocket, maybe you've got an SE or you've got the Pro, the Plus, Max, whatever it's called, a lot of times designing for the phone that's actually in your pocket is a good thing to do because you can actually monitor that exact artboard onto your phone through the Figma Mirror app or any other mirror app for your design tool. And it just is a good way for you to be able to see the actual size of things while you're holding it in your hand. So try to use text as much as possible to indicate action and read-only data, things like that, as opposed to a lot of boxes or button shapes. So think of this as like a typography nerd coffee cup. So here's some possible attributes for the settings for you to design. The name of the smart cup, the cup LED color, if the cup has like a light that you can change from the app, maybe the status of the cup, the last time it was used, like a date and timestamp, the temperature of the liquid, and the ability to check for updates and maybe even a firmware version. So I'll leave it up to you to decide which one of those items is more important. And you can let the importance sometimes kind of drive your decision-making process for how large or small to make the type size. For example, the coffee cup temperature is probably more important than the firmware version of the cup. So the temperature probably needs to be larger than the firmware version. But again, use, in the ballpark of 3 to 4 type sizes, less if you want. But please post your design to Slack so we can give you some feedback. And if you're feeling particularly excited about what you've made, post it to Dribbble and I will give you feedback there. And you can just put the parameters for the design, give the description of what you are working towards, and let everybody check it out. So I can't wait to see what you come up with. If you have any problems along the way, please reach out and I will get you sorted out.